The lights in the lower maintenance tunnel flickered twice before going completely dark. Danny Ortiz pressed himself against the cold metal wall and tried to remember the breathing exercises his sister had taught him years ago. Somewhere above him, alarms screamed through every corridor of Orbital Haven. The sound meant only one thing. Something had gotten loose. He had been replacing a faulty coolant valve when the emergency broadcast crackled through his headset. The words came fast and panicked. Containment breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. The creature from Vargos Prime had escaped. Danny knew about the Night Stalker. Everyone on the station knew about it. The researchers talked about it in hushed voices in the cafeteria. It was the deadliest predator they had ever brought aboard. 6 legs that could tear through steel, teeth like knives, scales harder than most armor, and intelligence. That was the part that scared people most. The thing could think. His communicator buzzed against his hip. He pulled it out with shaking hands. The small screen showed a map of the station with red zones spreading like blood through water. The Night Stalker was moving fast, too fast. It had already passed through 3 sectors and security teams were falling back. Not fighting, just running. The escape route Danny had planned to take now glowed red on his screen. Blocked. He scrolled through the map looking for another way out. Every path that led to the emergency shelters had turned red in the last 30 seconds. The creature was between him and safety. His headset crackled again. This time it was Chitara, the chief science officer. Her voice usually sounded calm and mechanical, the way most insectoid species spoke. Now it carried an edge of something close to fear. All personnel in sectors 9 through 12 find immediate shelter. Seal yourself in any room with a door. Do not attempt to run. Repeat, do not run. Danny looked around the tunnel. There were no rooms here, no doors. Just pipes and cables and dim emergency lighting that barely pushed back the shadows. He was in the guts of the station, the places where only maintenance workers went. Places without security cameras or reinforced walls. He started walking anyway, not running. Running made noise. Running made you look like prey. He had learned that a long time ago back on Earth. Before he came to space, he had worked with animals that could kill him just as easily as the Night Stalker could. Big cats that weighed more than he did. Wolves with jaws strong enough to crush bone. Bears that could break a person in half without trying hard. The trick was staying calm. Animals could smell fear. They could hear your heartbeat speed up. They knew when you were prey and when you were something else. Danny forced his breathing to slow down. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Keep moving, but do not run. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber where multiple pipes connected to a central processing unit. The emergency lights here were brighter. Danny could see 3 different passages leading away into darkness. He checked his communicator again. The map showed the Night Stalker had stopped moving. It was close now, maybe 2 corridors away. Something metal clanged in the passage to his left. Danny turned slowly. He kept his hands at his sides. No sudden movements. Another clang closer this time. Then he heard it. A sound like breathing but deeper, heavier. The kind of sound that came from something big. The Night Stalker emerged from the shadows like smoke taking shape. It was bigger than Danny had imagined. The pictures and videos had not done it justice. Its scales reflected the emergency lights in a way that made it seem like it was made of liquid darkness. 6 legs moved in perfect coordination. Each one ended in claws that clicked against the metal floor. Its head was wide and flat with sensory tendrils that moved independently, tasting the air. Danny stopped breathing for a moment. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run. His muscles tensed, his heart hammered against his ribs, but he did not move. He could hear his old supervisor's voice in his head from years ago at the animal center. The moment you run, you become prey. The moment you become prey, you die. The Night Stalker's tendrils locked onto him. Its eyes, 4 of them arranged in pairs, focused with an intensity that made Danny feel like he was being studied at a molecular level. The creature took a step forward, then another. It was close enough now that Danny could smell it. Something like copper and earth and something else he could not name. He wanted to close his eyes but knew that would be a mistake. Instead, he lowered his gaze slightly, not looking away completely but not challenging it either. Submissive but not weak. It was a balance he had learned with wolves. Show respect without showing fear. The Night Stalker circled him slowly. Danny could feel the displacement of air as it moved, could hear the clicking of its claws, could sense the power in its body, One strike and he would be dead before he hit the ground. But the strike did not come. Instead, the creature stopped in front of him. Its tendrils reached out and touched his arm. Not grabbing, just touching, feeling, learning. Danny remained perfectly still. He had been touched by dangerous animals before. He knew the difference between aggression and curiosity. The Night Stalker made a sound, low and rumbling. It vibrated through the chamber and through Danny's chest. Then, in a movement that seemed impossible for something so large and deadly, the creature lowered itself to the ground. Its body folded in a way that brought its head level with Danny's waist. The rumbling sound continued. Danny slowly released his breath. His communicator was buzzing frantically against his hip, but he ignored it. The Night Stalker settled completely onto the floor beside him. The rumbling grew deeper, more rhythmic, and Danny realized with a shock that cut through his fear like light through darkness that the deadliest predator in the galaxy was purring. The security feed showed everything in perfect detail. In the command center 3 levels above, a dozen aliens from 6 different species watched their screens in absolute silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They simply stared at the impossible scene playing out in the maintenance chamber below. Chitara's compound eyes processed the image faster than most species could blink. She had spent 40 years studying predator behavior across hundreds of worlds. She had written 3 books on the subject. Universities requested her as a guest lecturer. And yet nothing in her education or experience explained what she was seeing right now. "It should have killed him already," said Ralph, the reptilian security chief. His scales had turned a pale gray, the color his species displayed during extreme stress. "Why has it not killed him?" Nobody answered because nobody had an answer. On the screen, Danny Ortiz sat down slowly beside the Night Stalker. He moved like he was underwater, every gesture careful and deliberate. The creature's tendrils followed his movement but showed no signs of aggression. When Danny finally settled against the wall, the Night Stalker shifted closer, not attacking, just adjusting its position to remain near him. "Pull up his file," Chitara said quietly. Her assistant, a young mammalian named Brell, worked the controls with trembling paws. Danny's personnel record appeared on the secondary screen. Chitara scanned through it quickly. Human, male, 29 standard years old. Hired 8 months ago as a maintenance technician level 3. Previous employment listed as animal rehabilitation specialist on Earth. She stopped scrolling. Bring up details on his previous work. More information flooded the screen. Danny had worked for 12 years at a facility that rescued and rehabilitated large predators. Species listed included creatures called tigers, bears, wolves, and others that Chitara did not recognize. Each one was noted as potentially lethal to humans. Each one had killed members of their own species in the wild. "He worked with predators," Brell said, his voice small with realization. "Not just worked with them," Chitara corrected. She pulled up an image from Danny's file. It showed him standing beside a massive orange and black striped creature. His hand rested on its head. The creature's mouth was open, showing teeth that could easily fit around a human skull. But its eyes were half closed in what even Chitara recognized as contentment. He befriended them. Ralph made a hissing sound that indicated disbelief. "Impossible. Those are apex predators. You cannot befriend apex predators. You can only contain them or die to them." Chitara did not respond. She was watching Danny on the screen. He had pulled out his water container and was drinking slowly. The Night Stalker watched him with all 4 eyes. When Danny finished and sealed the container, he held it out toward the creature, not offering it, just showing it. The Night Stalker's tendrils investigated the container carefully. "He is teaching it," Chitara said. The realization hit her like a physical force. "He is showing it that he means no harm, that he has resources, that he is not prey. We need to kill it before it kills him," Ralph said. He moved toward the weapons locker. "I can get a clean shot through the ventilation shaft above that chamber. 1 plasma burst and this nightmare ends." "No." Chitara's voice cut through the room like a blade. Every head turned toward her. "We wait." "Wait for what?" "For that thing?" To remember it is a killer? Wait to see if humans understand something about predators that the rest of us do not. The room erupted in protest. Multiple voices overlapped in a dozen languages. Chitara raised her forearms for silence. When the noise died down, she continued. Humans come from a death world, a planet where apex predators and intelligent prey evolved together for millions of years. They learned to coexist in ways we never had to. Perhaps they know things we do not. She pulled up another file. This one contained videos from Earth. Creatures called dogs living inside human homes. Cats sleeping on human furniture. Horses carrying humans on their backs. Birds perching on human shoulders. Every single one could harm or kill a human if it chose to. And yet they chose not to. Earth predators bond with humans, Brell said, watching the videos with wide eyes. I thought those were just stories, propaganda to make humans seem less dangerous. I thought the same, Chitara admitted. But look at the evidence. Humans do not simply tame predators, they form relationships with them, emotional connections, and the predators respond. On the main screen, Danny was speaking softly to the Night Stalker. His words did not carry through the audio feed, but his tone did, low and gentle. The creature's purring sound had not stopped. If anything, it had grown deeper. Open a communication channel to him, Chitara ordered. I want to hear what he is saying. Brell worked the controls. A moment later, Danny's voice filled the command center. Not so different from Shadow, are you? Yeah, I know they gave you some complicated research designation, but you need a real name. Shadow fits you better. You move like a shadow. You are probably used to hunting in darkness back on your world. Ralph made a choking sound. He named it. He did more than name it, Chitara said. She was taking notes now, her fingers flying across her datapad. He is establishing familiarity, creating a social bond. This is how humans integrate predators into their society, not through force or fear, but through relationship. Danny continued talking to Shadow. He told the creature about Earth, about the animals he had worked with, about a tiger named Sasha, who used to greet him every morning by rubbing her massive head against his legs, about a wolf pack that had accepted him into their group after months of patient interaction. They are going to study this for decades, Brell whispered, if he survives. When he survives, Chitara corrected. She watched as Shadow moved even closer to Danny, the creature's armored head now resting near the human's leg. I do not think this Night Stalker wants to kill him. I think it wants what all intelligent creatures want. Connection, understanding, perhaps even friendship. That is insane, Ralph said, but his voice had lost its certainty. Perhaps, Chitara agreed. Or perhaps humans have been trying to tell us something all along, and we simply refuse to listen. They keep saying that Earth taught them to see individuals, not just species. To see potential companions, not just threats. Maybe that is their real strength. Not their resilience or their stubbornness, but their almost supernatural ability to make allies out of enemies. The command center fell silent again. Every eye returned to the screen where a human sat calmly beside the galaxy's most feared predator. And the predator purred. 16 hours had passed since the containment breach. Danny's back ached from sitting against the wall, but he did not dare move too quickly. Shadow had fallen into something like sleep, though one set of eyes remained half open, watching him. The creature's breathing had slowed to a steady rhythm that matched the purring sound still rumbling from deep in its chest. Danny's communicator had been buzzing on and off for hours. He had finally answered it around hour 4, whispering into the device while Shadow's tendrils twitched in what might have been dreams. Chitara had asked him 1,000 questions. He had answered as best he could while keeping his voice low and calm. Now food was coming. A small drone appeared at the entrance to the chamber, hovering carefully. It carried a container that smelled like the protein bars Danny usually ate during long shifts. The drone stopped about 10 meters away, apparently programmed not to get closer. Shadow's eyes opened fully. All 4 of them locked onto the drone with predatory focus. The purring stopped. Danny felt the creature's muscles tense beneath its scales. Easy, Danny said softly. He placed his hand on Shadow's neck, feeling the heat radiating from its body. That is food, just food. Not a threat. Shadow's head turned toward him. The tendrils waved slowly, tasting his scent again. Danny kept his hand steady on the creature's neck. After a long moment, Shadow relaxed slightly. Good, Danny murmured. He slowly pulled his hand back and made a staying gesture, palm down. It was the same signal he had used with dogs and wolves. Stay, wait. He had no idea if Shadow would understand, but it was worth trying. He stood up slowly. His legs had gone numb from sitting so long, and he had to lean against the wall until feeling returned. Shadow watched him but did not move. Danny took a careful step toward the drone. Then another. Shadow's tendrils tracked him, but the creature remained where it was. When Danny reached the drone, he took the container and waved the small machine away. It retreated quickly, disappearing back into the tunnel it had come from. Danny opened the container. 3 protein bars and a water pouch. Not much, but enough. He returned to his spot against the wall. Shadow had not moved except to follow him with its eyes. When Danny sat down again, the creature shifted closer, its purring resuming. Danny unwrapped one of the protein bars and took a bite. It tasted like cardboard and artificial flavoring, but his stomach was grateful for it. Shadow's attention fixed on the food. Not in an aggressive way, more like curiosity. Danny had seen the same look in rehabilitated animals back on Earth. Interest without threat. He broke off a small piece of the protein bar and held it out on his palm. Want to try? He asked. His voice stayed level and friendly. It does not taste great, but it will keep you alive. Shadow's tendrils extended toward his hand. They touched the piece of protein bar gently, almost delicately. Then the creature's mouth opened slightly and a narrow tongue, dark purple and surprisingly dexterous, took the food from Danny's palm. Shadow pulled back and worked the food around in its mouth for a moment before swallowing. The purring grew louder. Danny smiled despite everything, despite being trapped in a maintenance tunnel with a creature that could kill him before he could blink, despite the entire station being in lockdown because of the thing sitting next to him. Despite not knowing if he would survive the next hour, he smiled because Shadow had accepted food from him. You like that, huh? Danny broke off another piece. This time Shadow took it more quickly, the tongue barely brushing against his palm. We are making progress, you and me. Through his communicator, Danny heard Chitara's voice. She had been recording everything. Now she sounded like she might be crying, though Danny was not sure insectoid species could cry. This is remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. In 40 years of studying predator behavior, I have never seen anything like this. It is not that special, Danny said quietly, feeding Shadow another piece. This is just what happens when you stop treating animals like monsters and start treating them like individuals. But the Night Stalker species has been classified as impossible to domesticate. Chitara protested. Every attempt has ended in death. That is because everyone tried to dominate them, Danny explained. He had been thinking about this for hours. You cannot dominate an apex predator. They are too smart for that, too proud. But you can befriend one. You can show it respect. You can prove that you are not a threat and not prey. You can be something new, something it has never encountered before. He finished the first protein bar and started on the second. Shadow watched with intense interest. Danny broke off pieces and offered them. The creature accepted each one with that same careful gentleness. By the time the second bar was gone, Shadow had moved close enough that its body pressed against Danny's side. The weight was substantial. Easily 300 pounds of muscle and armor and teeth. Danny could feel the creature's heartbeat through its scales, steady and strong. The purring vibrated through his entire body. Back on Earth, Danny said, speaking as much to himself as to anyone listening through the communicator. We learned something important. Predators are not evil. They are not monsters. They are just animals trying to survive in a dangerous world. Same as us. And when you remember that, when you treat them with respect and patience, amazing things can happen. He reached out slowly and placed his hand on Shadow's head. The scales felt smooth and warm. Shadow did not pull away. Instead, the creature leaned into the touch slightly, the way a cat might, the way Sasha the tiger used to. You are far from home, Danny said softly. Probably scared. Definitely confused. Everyone here treats you like a weapon or a specimen. Nobody has treated you like a living being with thoughts and feelings. But I get it. I understand. Shadow's purring deepened. One of its tendrils wrapped loosely around Danny's wrist. Not restraining, just holding, just connecting. Through the communicator, Chitara's voice came again. Danny, the station council wants to meet with you. They want to discuss what happens next. Tell them I am a bit busy right now, Danny replied. He did not take his hand off Shadow's head. But you can tell them this. If they try to kill Shadow, they will have to kill me first. The silence that followed told Danny that his message had been received. The council chamber had never been this full. Representatives from every species on the station crowded around the circular table. Screens on the walls showed Danny and Shadow in the maintenance chamber, now on day 3 of their strange partnership. Additional screens displayed data, incident reports, and communication logs from across the galaxy. Word had spread fast. The story of a human befriending a Night Stalker had reached every corner of civilized space within hours. News organizations were broadcasting it. Scientists were debating it, and the station was receiving hundreds of messages from governments, universities, and private citizens, all demanding information. Chitara stood at the center of the room, her datapad projecting images into the air above the table. The situation is stable, she began. Danny Ortiz has been with the Night Stalker for 73 hours without incident. The creature, which he has named Shadow, shows no signs of aggression. In fact, it displays behavior consistent with social bonding. Social bonding, Ralph repeated. The security chief had not slept in 3 days, and it showed in the dark patches under his eyes. It is a predator. Predators do not bond. They hunt, they kill, they eat. That is their nature. Earth predators bond, said Dr. Yana, the mammalian medical officer. She had been reviewing files from Earth for 2 days straight. Dogs were once wolves, deadly pack hunters. Humans befriended them thousands of years ago. Now dogs live in human homes. They protect human children. They work alongside humans, the same with cats, horses, birds, and dozens of other species. Earth is different, Rolth argued. Humans evolved alongside those predators. They had millions of years to adapt to each other. Danny Ortiz met Shadow 3 days ago, Chitara countered, and yet they have formed a bond that our models said was impossible. This suggests that the bonding ability is not about evolution. It is about approach, about understanding. She brought up new images. These showed Shadow responding to Danny's hand signals, sitting when Danny gestured down, following when Danny moved slowly through the chamber, even stopping mid-movement when Danny raised his palm. He is training it, Brell said with wonder in his voice. He is communicating with it, Chitara corrected. Training implies dominance. What Danny is doing is establishing mutual language. Shadow learns his signals. He learns Shadow's body language. They are teaching each other. The avian administrator, a tall being named Quiris with brilliant blue feathers, spoke up. The legal implications are significant. If this Night Stalker has bonded with a human, it cannot be classified as a dangerous animal. It would have rights, protections. It killed 3 security drones during the escape, Rolth reminded everyone. It destroyed property worth hundreds of thousands of credits. It endangered lives. So do children having tantrums, Dr. Yana said dryly. Should we execute children for property damage? The room erupted in argument. Multiple voices overlapped in multiple languages. Chitara let it continue for a moment before calling for order. When silence returned, she played a new video. This one showed Danny sleeping. Shadow lay curled around him in a protective circle, tendrils draped across his body. When a maintenance drone had wandered too close to the chamber entrance, Shadow had raised its head and made a warning sound. The drone retreated immediately. Shadow settled back down, adjusting its position to better shelter Danny from the cool air of the tunnel. That is guarding behavior, Dr. Yana said quietly. Shadow views Danny as part of its social unit. It is protecting him, which makes it even more dangerous, Rolth insisted. If Shadow sees Danny as its pack, it will kill anything it perceives as a threat to him, including us. Or, Chitara said, it means Shadow can learn to accept others that Danny trusts. The same way Earth predators accepted entire human families and communities. She pulled up more data. I have been in contact with experts on Earth, biologists who study predator behavior. They all say the same thing. Predators are complex social creatures. They form hierarchies. They communicate. They feel emotions. And most importantly, they can choose cooperation over conflict when given the opportunity. The question, Quiris said, spreading his wings slightly in a gesture of contemplation, is what do we do now? We cannot keep Danny trapped in that tunnel forever. We cannot kill Shadow without killing Danny. and we cannot simply release an apex predator to wander the station. I have a proposal, Chitara said. She had been working on this for hours, refining it, checking every variable. We create a new habitat for Shadow, large enough for proper exercise and enrichment. We assign Danny as the primary handler, and we establish a research program to study the human-predator bonding process. You want to keep it, Ralph said flatly. I want to learn from it, Chitara corrected. Think about what this means. There are dozens of worlds rich in resources that we cannot colonize because of dangerous predators. Worlds where mining operations lose hundreds of lives every year to animal attacks. If humans can bond with these creatures, can learn to communicate with them, can establish peaceful coexistence, it changes everything. The council members looked at each other. Chitara could see the calculations happening behind their eyes. The potential benefits, the enormous risks, the political implications. There is more, Chitara continued. She pulled up a new message. It was from the human government on Earth. Earth is offering to send specialists, people with experience in predator rehabilitation and training. They want to establish a joint program here on Orbital Haven. They are calling it the Interspecies Predator Understanding Initiative. Of course they are, Ralph muttered. Humans always want to befriend the dangerous things. Yes, Dr. Yana said with a small smile. And maybe that is exactly what the galaxy needs. We have been trying to eliminate or avoid dangerous species for centuries. Perhaps it is time we tried understanding them instead. Quiris tapped his beak thoughtfully. If we do this, if we approve this program, it will change policy across the entire galactic community. Every species will have to reconsider how they deal with predators on their own worlds and on newly discovered planets. Good, Chitara said firmly. Change is long overdue. The vote took 3 hours. Arguments circled back on themselves. Data was reviewed and reviewed again. Danny and Shadow slept through most of it, the screens showing them peaceful and calm while the fate of their partnership was debated. Finally, Quiris called for a formal decision. The vote was close. Several species abstained, but when the count finished, the result was clear. Shadow would live. The program would proceed, and humanity's gift for befriending the deadly would become an official part of galactic policy. Chitara immediately opened a communication channel to Danny. We have news, she said. You are about to become very busy. 2 weeks after the council vote, the new habitat was ready. Danny stood at its entrance, Shadow pressed against his leg like an enormous armored dog. The space beyond was huge compared to the maintenance tunnel they had been living in. Climbing structures reached toward the ceiling. Water features provided drinking spots and cooling areas. Soft surfaces offered comfortable resting places. It looked less like a cage and more like a home. What do you think? Danny asked quietly. Shadow's tendrils extended into the habitat, exploring the air. The creature made a sound Danny had learned meant curiosity mixed with caution. I know. It is new. Different. But it is yours. Ours. Really. I will be here with you. Behind them, Chitara watched with her ever-present datapad. She had barely left her office since the council approval, coordinating with experts across the galaxy and designing protocols for what she now called the IPUI, the Interspecies Predator Understanding Initiative. Danny thought it sounded fancy for what basically amounted to him teaching people how to not be idiots around dangerous animals. Shadow took a tentative step forward, then another. Danny walked beside the creature, his hand resting on its neck. They entered the habitat together. Shadow's head swung back and forth, taking in every detail. The purring sound that had become so familiar to Danny rumbled steadily. The first transport from Earth arrives tomorrow, Chitara said from the entrance. 5 specialists. They all have experience similar to yours. One worked with bears, another with large cats. There is even one who rehabilitated crocodiles. Crocodiles, Danny repeated. He guided Shadow toward one of the climbing structures. The creature investigated it carefully, then launched itself upward with surprising grace. Those are mean, prehistoric brain, pure instinct. If someone can work with crocodiles, they can probably handle most things. Shadow reached a platform 3 meters up and looked down at them. The creature's body language showed pleasure, happy with the new vertical space. Back on Vargos Prime, night stalkers probably climbed trees or cliff faces. This habitat gave Shadow something closer to its natural environment. We are also receiving applications from other species, Chitara continued. A mammalian from the border worlds who works with pack hunters, an insectoid who studies hive predators, even a reptilian, though Rolth refuses to speak to him. Danny smiled at that. Rolth had been avoiding him since the council vote. The security chief clearly still thought the whole program was insane. Danny could not entirely blame him. From a certain perspective, teaching people to befriend apex predators probably did look insane. Over the next 3 days, the Earth team arrived. Danny met them in the habitat, Shadow watching carefully from a high perch. There was Patricia, older and weathered, who had spent 30 years working with grizzly bears in the mountains of North America. Lee, quiet and precise, who specialized in big cats. Rashid, energetic and talkative, who had rehabilitated everything from wolves to wild dogs. Anna, serious and focused, who worked with marine predators including sharks and crocodiles. And Timothy, young but experienced with birds of prey. So that is a night stalker, Patricia said, studying Shadow with the practiced eye of someone who had dealt with dangerous animals her whole life. Bigger than the photo suggested. Shadow, Danny corrected gently. The creature's name is Shadow. Patricia nodded. Shadow, right. First rule of working with predators. They are individuals, not specimens. Second rule, Lee added, his eyes tracking Shadow's movement. Never treat them like pets. Respect first. Always respect. Shadow descended from the perch slowly. The creature's attention fixed on the newcomers. Danny could feel the tension in his own shoulders. This was the real test. Shadow had bonded with him. But could the creature learn to accept others? Stay calm, Danny instructed. Let Shadow approach you. Do not reach out. Do not make direct eye contact. Just be present. The team followed his instructions perfectly. They had all done this before with Earth predators. The principles were the same even if the species was different. Shadow circled the group slowly, tendrils extended, gathering information. The purring had stopped, but there was no aggression in the creature's body language. Just assessment. Shadow paused in front of Patricia. The two beings studied each other. Then Patricia did something that made Danny's heart stop. She slowly lowered herself to one knee, bringing her head below Shadow's eye level. Submission without weakness. Respect without fear. Shadow's tendril touched Patricia's shoulder. Gentle. Curious. The creature's purring resumed. Hello, Shadow, Patricia said softly. I am glad to meet you. Over the following week, they established routines. Morning sessions where Danny and the team worked with Shadow on communication signals. Afternoon enrichment activities where they introduced puzzles and challenges for the creature to solve. Evening sessions where they simply existed together in the habitat, letting Shadow become comfortable with multiple humans. The creature's intelligence became obvious quickly. Shadow learned new signals within days. The Night Stalker understood cause and effect, could plan several steps ahead, and showed clear signs of emotional complexity. Joy when solving puzzles, frustration when something did not work, affection toward the humans who treated it with respect. Other species began observing the sessions. Chitara gave lectures on what they were learning. The data accumulated rapidly. Shadow was not an exception. The creature was simply the first Night Stalker to be given the opportunity to be something other than a monster. A month into the program, Chitara approached Danny with news. We have been contacted by a mining company. They operate on a world called Forge. It has massive mineral deposits but also massive predators. They lose dozens of workers every year. They want to know if we can help. Danny looked at Shadow, who was playing a game with Timothy involving hiding treats around the habitat. The creature moved with confidence now. Happy. Secure. You want us to go to Forge and try to establish relationships with the predators there. I want you to show the galaxy that there is another way, Chitara said. You and your team. Humans who understand that dangerous does not mean evil, that predators can be partners instead of enemies. It will be risky, Danny warned. Everything worth doing is risky, Chitara replied. But look at what you have accomplished. A creature that was supposed to be impossible to approach now plays games and responds to commands. If you can do that here, you can do it anywhere. Shadow bounded over to them, tendrils waving happily. The creature had found all the hidden treats and wanted acknowledgement. Danny scratched behind Shadow's head ridges, the spot that made the purring loudest. What do you think, Shadow? Ready for an adventure? The Night Stalker's purring deepened, and somehow Danny knew the answer was yes. Forge lived up to its name. The planet's surface glowed with volcanic heat and the air tasted like metal and sulfur. Danny and his team stood on the landing platform of the mining colony, watching Shadow explore the new environment with obvious excitement. The heat did not bother the Night Stalker. If anything, Shadow seemed more energized here than on the climate-controlled station. The predators here are called furnace hounds, explained the colony administrator, a stocky mammalian named Gorvin. His fur was singed in several places, evidence of close calls. They hunt in packs. Smart, fast, they can sense heat signatures through rock. We lose people every month? Patricia studied the landscape through viewing lenses. Dark shapes moved in the distance, visible only as ripples of heat against the already scorching background. How many in a typical pack? 5 to 7, Gorvin replied. The alpha is always largest, aggressive. They test our perimeter defenses constantly. Sounds like wolves, Rashid murmured. Pack structure, hierarchy. That is actually good news. Pack animals understand social dynamics. Good news? Gorvin's ears flattened against his skull. Those things have killed 47 of my people in 2 years. How is that good news? Because pack animals can learn, Danny explained. He was watching Shadow, who had gone very still. The Night Stalker's tendrils pointed toward the distant heat ripples. They communicate. They have rules. They understand boundaries. We just need to speak their language. Over the next week, the team established a base camp outside the colony's perimeter. They brought minimal technology. No weapons except emergency stun devices that everyone hoped they would not need. Instead, they brought food. Strong-smelling, protein-rich food designed to attract predators. Shadow adapted to the role of intermediary naturally. The Night Stalker was an apex predator from another death world. When the first furnace hounds approached the camp, they recognized Shadow as something powerful, something that demanded respect. Danny watched through the observation equipment as 3 furnace hounds circled their position. They looked like scaled dogs built from volcanic rock, their bodies radiating heat so intense it distorted the air around them. Their eyes glowed orange. Their teeth could probably bite through steel. Shadow stood at the edge of camp, body language neutral. Not aggressive, not submissive, simply present. The lead furnace hound, larger than the others, approached slowly. The 2 predators studied each other. This is either going to work or we are about to watch Shadow fight 3 furnace hounds, Lee said quietly. It will work, Danny said, though his heart hammered against his ribs. Shadow knows what to do. The lead furnace hound made a sound like rocks grinding together. Shadow responded with a low rumble. Not the purr Shadow made for humans. Something different. Something primal. The 2 predators circled each other once, twice. Then the furnace hound lowered its head slightly. Recognition between apex predators. Respect. Phase 1 complete, Patricia said with satisfaction. They see Shadow as an equal. Now we build on that. The process took weeks. Every day, Danny and his team sat in the open near their camp. Shadow remained with them, a living bridge between species. The furnace hounds returned regularly, always cautious but increasingly curious. The team left food at a respectful distance. They never approached aggressively. They simply existed in the space, proving they were not prey and not threat. Anna was the first to make direct contact. She had a gift for reading predator body language, and she recognized the moment when one of the younger furnace hounds showed curiosity stronger than caution. She sat perfectly still while the creature approached. Its heat was almost unbearable even from 3 meters away. But Anna did not flinch, did not retreat. The furnace hound touched its nose to her extended hand. She felt her glove begin to singe but kept her hand steady. The creature investigated her scent, her heat signature, her complete lack of fear. Then it made a sound almost like a purr, though rougher and deeper than Shadow's. Contact, Anna said softly, her voice steady despite the pain from her burning glove. We have contact. From there, progress accelerated. The pack's alpha watched as pack members interacted with the humans without harm. Shadow's presence gave the furnace hounds confidence that these strange beings were safe. Danny began teaching them the same signals he used with Shadow. Sit, stay, come. Simple commands that established communication. Timothy worked with the miners, teaching them how to move around furnace hounds without triggering predatory responses. No running, no aggressive gestures, respect for territory. Simple rules that had worked with dangerous animals on Earth for thousands of years. 3 months after arriving on Forge, Danny stood with Gorvan at the colony perimeter. A furnace hound pack moved past them, close enough to feel their heat. But they were not hunting miners anymore. They were patrolling. The hounds had learned that the colony provided food and safety. In exchange, they warned of other dangers. Volcanic instability, approaching storms. They had become partners instead of enemies. I still do not fully understand it, Gorvan admitted. How you made them stop killing us. We did not make them do anything, Danny corrected. He watched Shadow playing with 2 young furnace hounds, the 3 predators chasing each other across the hot rock. We just showed them that we could be allies instead of prey. That cooperation benefits everyone. It is not magic. It is just understanding. News of their success spread across the galaxy faster than their previous achievement. The IPUI received funding for expansion. Other colonies requested teams. Danny trained new handlers, always emphasizing the same principles. Respect, patience, understanding. See the individual, not the monster. A year after the incident on Orbital Haven, Danny stood in the new habitat they had built for Shadow. The Night Stalker was older now, calmer, more confident. The creature had become famous across the galaxy. The predator that chose friendship over violence. Chitara visited often, still taking notes, still learning. You have changed everything, she told Danny during one visit. Predator management policy has been rewritten on 200 worlds. Colonies that were failing are now thriving. Lives are being saved because of what you taught us. Danny scratched Shadow's head, feeling the familiar rumble of purring. I just treated Shadow like a person instead of a thing. Everything else followed from that. That is the part most species could not understand, Chitara said. We saw predators as forces of nature, dangerous but mindless. You saw them as intelligent beings capable of choice. That was the insight we missed for centuries. Shadow's tendrils wrapped around Danny's arm affectionately. In the distance, other handlers worked with other predators. The program had grown beyond anything Danny had imagined. Dozens of species learning to communicate. Hundreds of worlds becoming safer through understanding instead of violence. You know what the best part is? Danny asked. He looked at Shadow, this creature that was supposed to be impossible to befriend. Every time we make a connection like this, every time we turn an enemy into an ally, we prove that the galaxy does not have to be about fear and conflict. It can be about cooperation, about finding common ground even with beings completely different from us. Shadow purred louder, as if agreeing. And across the galaxy, on stations and colonies and mining operations and research facilities, humans worked alongside predators that everyone had once called monsters, teaching, learning, building bridges between species that had seemed forever separate. The universe was still dangerous. It would always be dangerous. But now there was another option, another path forward. And it had started with a simple act of trust in a dark maintenance tunnel, when a human refused to run and a predator chose not to kill. Sometimes, Danny thought, the most powerful weapon was not violence at all. It was the stubborn, foolish, wonderful human belief that anything could be a friend if you just gave it the chance.